Do you want to know how to strip souls bare? Today, from the shadows, the voice of Machiavelli rises again. You will not hear advice. You will hear confessions. A fox in the court, a lion in the trap. Prepare yourself, for what you are about to hear is a map of shadows. Now, I yield the word to Machiavelli.
Section 1. The Art of Seeing the Invisible. They called me cunning. They called me a traitor. Some even called me a demon. I take no offense, because I saw what they refused to see. Men do not reveal themselves at banquets or in churches. They reveal themselves in corridors, when no one is watching, when they believe there are no witnesses. I learned this in the court, among bishops who swore sanctity while selling indulgences, among princes who smiled with sweetness and later poisoned the wine of their guests. Do you want to know someone? Do not listen when they praise you. Watch when they cross paths with the invisible servant cleaning the floor. The soul does not know how to act before what it despises, and that contempt is the crack through which truth escapes. I have seen great men, admired by all, laugh at the messenger who delivered the wrong letter. I have seen supposed friends look right through you when you had nothing left to offer. And I understood this. He who treats the weak with cruelty will treat you with the same cruelty when you are no longer useful. Masks are expensive, but disdain is free. And in that brutal economy is written the essence of every man. Picture a lion and a mouse. When the lion toys with the mouse, it is not for amusement. It is because his instinct tells him the small one has no voice, no defense, no witnesses. That gesture does not change, even if tomorrow you are the mouse. So it is with human beings. Do not trust the smile they dedicate to you. Trust how they look at those they believe do not matter. There lies the full X-ray of their morality. In my years of diplomacy, I tested men not with words, but with the invisible. I would have a servant make mistakes on purpose in their presence, and I would watch how they reacted. The one who became irritated over a poorly served cup was unfit for power, for his soul was already enslaved by arrogance. The one who treated the smallest with condescension revealed that his kindness was only ego disguised. But the one who looked into their eyes and gave sincere thanks, that one, though not a saint, at least had a fragment of humanity not yet completely corrupted. I knew how to read men as a doctor reads symptoms. And my first rule was always this: do not trust what someone shows to you. Trust what they show to the one to whom they owe nothing. Because when they feel observed, men act. But when they believe no one watches, their soul speaks. Let me share a secret. Florence's court was full of actors. All smiled, all swore friendship, all posed as loyal. But it was enough to see them at the tavern or before a servant to discover who they truly were. You do not need to wait for betrayal to recognize it. The seed of betrayal is already in how they treat the last in line. You who listen to me now may ask, and what do I gain by seeing the invisible? You will gain everything, because you will know how to anticipate. When you see the flatterer despise a beggar, you will already know how he will treat you when you fall. When you watch the powerful turn indifferent toward a servant, you will already know what he will do to you the day you lose your usefulness. That is how one reads essence, not in speeches, not in oaths, but in how they treat those who can give them nothing in return. Remember this: the respect given with no witnesses is the only respect that has real value. And if someone believes themselves too great to look upon the small, they have already revealed their true size, a dwarf disguised as a giant. The human soul is like a fogged mirror. If you look straight into it, you will see only distorted reflections. But if you watch the edges, the unnoticed gestures, the moments when no one is acting, there you will see the true image. I, Machiavelli, learned to look at the edges, and that is why I survived where others were devoured. Now listen carefully. For what words conceal, silence reveals. And silence, well used, is the sharpest scalpel of power. Block 2. Silence as an emotional trap. Silence. That invisible monster that terrifies more than words. Many believe that to remain silent is weakness. I discovered that silence, at the right moment, is a weapon sharper than any sword. When I entered a room, I was rarely the first to speak. I let others fill the air with their phrases. Because I knew something they ignored. Men do not speak because they have something to say. They speak because they fear what would happen if they remained silent. Silence is not the absence of sound. Silence is an uncomfortable presence. It is a dark mirror in which each man projects his own anxiety. Picture a courtier before a prince. The courtier must impress, must feel accepted. If the prince remains silent, the courtier cannot endure the void. He speaks more, he justifies himself, he invents, he exaggerates, and in that excess, he betrays himself. The silence of the prince was stronger than all his questions. I, Machiavelli, learned to use silence as a hunter uses a net. I did not trap men with words. I trapped them with pauses. I would remain still, impassive, and let them reveal what they most feared. I saw ambassadors of foreign powers lose their composure because I did not respond to their flattery. I saw conspirators betray themselves because I did not react to their promises. Silence was my scalpel, and with it, I opened the psychological flesh of others without their noticing. He who masters silence does not need to threaten. Silence is the threat. It is the doubt that gnaws, the absence that wounds, the shadow others desperately try to illuminate with useless words. Let me give you an example. A cardinal from Rome came to Florence to negotiate with my lord. He presented himself with all pomp, speaking of the sanctity of the church, of the purity of his intentions. I listened in silence, not moving a single muscle of my face. At first he felt comfortable, then uncomfortable, finally desperate. He began to speak faster, to confess things he should not. And when he left the room, I already knew what he wanted, what he feared, and what he would never have confessed had he been facing someone who interrupted him with words. Silence undressed him, not because I asked, but because I forced him to listen to himself. Silence is a laboratory. Those who do not understand it, fill it. Those who master it, watch others collapse within it. Listen carefully. Words are curtains of smoke. Silence is the wind that dissipates them. When you face someone, try this. Do not respond quickly. Make a pause. Not with the social gesture of courtesy, but with the precision of a surgeon who waits for the heartbeat before cutting. The prolonged pause provokes anxiety, and anxiety provokes confession. You will see how they struggle to guess what you are thinking, how they try to fill the void with assumptions, how they reveal what they most desire without you even asking. I used it in the courts, but you can use it anywhere. In friendship, in love, in politics, in war. Silence always reveals more than words. Some, when facing a pause, laugh nervously. Others avert their gaze. Others fill the air with trivialities. And I, meanwhile, would note in my mind every gesture, every hesitation. Because what a man does to escape silence is what he most fears to show. Do not confuse this with passivity. Silence, well used, is not emptiness. It is an invisible battlefield. He who endures the discomfort of silence has already won. He who collapses within it has already lost. Let me give you a metaphor. Silence is like a swamp. If you move with desperation, you sink faster. If you remain firm, the swamp cannot swallow you. So it is in conversation. He who desperately rushes to speak sinks in his own words. I learned that every second of silence multiplies the weight of your voice. If you speak little, each word becomes a decree. If you speak too much, your voice becomes just another noise. That is why I wasted no phrases. I spoke less, and each word pierced into the mind of my interlocutor like a dagger. Silence is also a mirror. When someone faces it, they project onto you what they most fear. The insecure believes you judge them. The ambitious believes you are examining them. The paranoid believes you are condemning them. But you have said nothing. They alone have stripped themselves bare. In my time, I saw many men lose battles without a single drop of blood spilled. They lost at the negotiation table because they could not withstand the invisible torture of a prolonged pause. And the worst part is, they never understood what had defeated them. It was not an army. It was silence. Now hear this warning. Silence must not be used as a childish whim. It is not for manipulating trivial conversations. It is for diagnosis. It is to see what lies behind the disguise. Silence well handled is not a wall. It is a clinical mirror. And if you know how to observe, the soul of the other reflects in it with all its rawness. Remember this. Silence turns your presence into an invisible interrogation, and he who cannot endure that interrogation will inevitably reveal himself. Silence is like a dagger wrapped in velvet. It seems harmless. It seems elegant. But when applied at the right moment, it pierces through all masks and strikes directly at the heart. I, Machiavelli, learned it late. But once I mastered it, I never again needed to shout, never again needed to beg for attention. My silence spoke for me. Now you know that to remain silent is a weapon. But an even darker edge remains, the withdrawal of benefit. For nothing reveals the essence of a man more than the moment you stop giving him what he desires. Block 3. Withdrawal of benefit. I realized something that almost no one dares to practice. If you want to see someone's true face, do not give them what they expect from you. Withdraw your attention, your affection, your approval. Not with hostility, not with insults, but with a cold calm, with strategic indifference. Men reveal themselves more when deprived than when rewarded. Take away the benefit they always received, and you will see the mask shatter. In Florence, I learned that most alliances are not built on friendship or respect, but on convenience. The banquets, the smiles, the embraces, they were currency. But when the fountain dried, when there were no more titles, favors, or riches to give, the true nature emerged. I remember a noble who swore eternal loyalty while my lord guaranteed him land. He sounded sincere. But the moment a payment was delayed, this same man became distant, cold, almost hostile. There was no friendship there, only rent. Thus I discovered the first rule of this tactic. Most do not follow you. They follow the river that feeds them. When the river dries, they leave. Test it. Be cordial but distant. Listen, but do not feed back. Offer presence, but without the warmth you once gave. Do not do it with cruelty. Do it with neutrality. Observe. The results are always revealing. Some react nervously. They try to win you back. They seek you out insistently, exaggerate their virtues, offer more than they used to. They do not do this because they care for you. They do it because your detachment threatens the drug they consumed, your validation. Others change colors instantly. They turn cold, ignore you, act indifferent. As if, without extracting value from you, you were suddenly worthless. These were never with you. They were with the image of what you represented, your status, your influence, your usefulness. And there are the rare few who remain unchanged. They do not alter. They do not desperately seek your attention. They do not ignore you. They look at you with the same calm as before. Those are rare, dangerous, or valuable. Because they may be playing the same game as you, or perhaps in truth, they need nothing from you. Remember, withdrawal of benefit is not vengeance. It is diagnosis. It is not about harming, but about seeing what lies behind the automatic smile. The power of withdrawal lies in this. Emptiness always reveals. The air no longer given, the affection withdrawn, the attention frozen. All of it strips away the motivations. He who stays when there is nothing to gain is the only real bond you have. Let me tell you a story. In Rome, I knew a counselor famous for his friendship with all. He was always surrounded, always seemed beloved. One day, through a political shift, he lost influence over a contract that distributed favors. Within 2 weeks, his house was empty. The same men who had swarmed him like bees around honey vanished. He was left alone, wondering what he had done wrong. He had done nothing wrong. His mistake was confusing convenience with friendship. I never made that mistake. I learned that bonds must be tested. Withdraw the benefit and wait. If the board collapses, it was never a bond. It was a transaction disguised as affection. Withdrawal of benefit works everywhere. In politics, in family, in friendship, even in love. Many loves survive only because one side sustains the illusion with constant effort. Withdraw that effort, and you will see the truth. If it was dependency, it will collapse. If it was a bond, it will endure. The mistake many make is believing they must give without pause to sustain a relationship. They do not understand that if you must endlessly pour energy just to keep someone from leaving, you do not have a relationship. You have a debt with no end. And here is the Machiavellian edge. You need no grand tests. You need not deny everything. Withdraw only a fraction. Delay a response. Withhold an expected compliment. Stay cold where once you were warm. That small crack is enough to reveal how the other reacts. I saw courtiers full of grace turn into serpents just because they did not receive the smile they wanted. I saw supposed friends grow cold because they were not invited to a banquet. I saw lovers descend into madness because the exact words they expected never arrived. And I also saw the rare few remain unchanged. Those, though scarce, are the only ones who deserve your relative trust. And I say relative because even they can fail at the right moment. But at least they reveal no immediate dependence on your benefit. Withdrawal is uncomfortable because it feels like cruelty. But it is not cruelty, it is clarity. And clarity is power. Picture a tree. While you water it, it appears strong, its leaves green, its trunk upright. But if in a matter of days without water it withers, then you realize its strength was an illusion. So it is with men. Many appear loyal while you feed them, but when the water stops, they reveal they never had roots. I, Machiavelli, learned to water with measure, because I did not want to be surrounded by false green leaves, but by deep roots. Withdrawal of benefit is not just a test of loyalty, it is also a method of selection. It allows you to separate those who only want to consume from you from those who remain even through drought. And a warning. Not all who endure withdrawal do so out of goodness. Some do it out of calculation. Do not fall into the trap of believing calm is always virtue. It may be strategy. That is why, when you find someone unchanged after you withdraw your benefit, observe them more closely. They may be your strongest ally or your most dangerous enemy. Remember this as a Machiavellian axiom. Men are good while you give them what they want. When you stop giving, they show who they are. Withdrawal, then, is not punishment. It is a lamp. It illuminates what excess of giving kept in the shadows. I was not seeking cruelty. I sought truth. And I discovered that the greatest truth of a man is revealed not in abundance, but in absence. The human soul is like a banquet. While the table is full, all smile. Remove the plates, extinguish the candles, and you will see who remains in the hall and who leaves with excuses. Try this in your life. Withdraw with elegance, without hatred, with neutrality. Observe. What you discover will save you years of deception, because the only thing crueler than withdrawing a benefit is giving it endlessly, only to discover too late that loyalty never existed. I, Machiavelli, did not trust words of love, nor vows of friendship, nor smiles of courtesy. I trusted withdrawal, because withdrawal reveals. and what is revealed in the void is the exact measure of human nature. Block 4. Breaking the inner script. I have met many men who never truly conversed with me. They performed. Every word was a rehearsed gesture, every smile a calculation, every silence a studied move designed to appear spontaneous. In the courts of Florence, such actors were everywhere. They were not politicians, they were performers. And the worst part is that, by repeating their script so often, they began to believe it themselves. The human being has a cruel talent. When a role works, he repeats it until he confuses himself with it. The flatterer who learns that his praise opens doors becomes a walking compliment. The diplomat who sees his false humility generate sympathy ends up swallowing his own modesty. The ambitious man who notices that feigned vulnerability convinces others becomes a professional victim. I saw it again and again. Entire people living not in flesh, but in character. And I understood that if I wanted to know who was behind those perfect masks, I had to interrupt the script. How do you break a script? Simple. Remove the actor's stage. When someone was used to laughter at his jokes, I stopped smiling. When they expected enthusiasm after their praise, I remained impassive. When their speech flowed smoothly, I suddenly introduced an abrupt topic, something that would dislocate them. The result was always the same. The mask cracked. I saw courtiers stutter because my face did not return the reaction they rehearsed. I saw men of apparent calm lose all composure because I refused to follow their theater's rhythm. I saw flatterers fall silent, unable to improvise a phrase when their script collapsed. That fissure was pure gold. It was the moment when the real person, hidden behind the actor, appeared. It might be for a second, perhaps just a micro-expression, but it was there. I recall an emissary who came from Milan, armed with rehearsed lines to convince my lord to sign a treaty. His voice was firm, his gestures impeccable, each word fell as if dictated by gods. But I interrupted with a simple question he had not anticipated. And you? Where will you be when this treaty breaks? I saw him falter, just a fraction of a second. His eyes shifted, his lips tightened. In that instant, I knew he was not convinced himself. His speech was theater, his confidence a fiction. And thanks to that crack, Florence avoided a poisoned alliance. When a man lives through his character, the script is his armor. Strip him of the script, and his soul is exposed. Let me give you a metaphor. A musician can play his piece with perfection, but if the conductor suddenly cuts the orchestra short, the musician must improvise. And it is in that improvisation that you see if he is a virtuoso or an imposter. The same is true of men. Breaking the inner script is a subtle art. It does not require shouting or confrontation. You only need to introduce chaos into their order. A pause where they expected fluency, silence where they sought applause, a suspicious look where they demanded approval. The actor depends on his audience. Without it, he collapses. I saw manipulators lose their composure simply because I did not respond to their fake vulnerability with compassion. I saw narcissists rage because I was not impressed by their heroic tale. I saw emotional strategists accuse others of coldness because we refused to follow the script they had written for us. Here is the key. They do not speak to you. They speak to the audience they imagine in their mind. And if you do not react as their script demands, their theater collapses. And then, authentic reactions appear. Irritation, frustration, anxiety, contempt. The soul without a script always betrays itself. The mistake many make is believing they must patiently listen to the actor until the end. No. What you must do is interrupt the rhythm. Insert the discordant note. Become the chaotic variable that breaks their continuity. The script is like a perfectly stretched fabric. A single tug, and it tears. And when it tears, you see what lies behind. In my writings, many accused me of cynicism for advising distrust of appearances. But they did not understand. It is not about distrusting blindly. It is about provoking the crack. Because truth is rarely announced, it almost always leaks. And nothing leaks it faster than emotional disruption. Observe what happens when you interrupt someone's script. If he improvises smoothly, he likely was not pretending. If he freezes, he was living inside the character. If he becomes irritated, he was defending an illusion. If he attacks, he fears you saw too much. I did not seek courtesy, I sought fractures. For in the fracture, truth slips through. Let me tell you another example. A young courtier, skilled with words, approached me to convince me to recommend him to the prince. He spoke of his love for the city, of his desire to serve, of his unbreakable loyalty. All rehearsed. I let him flow for a while, then looked him in the eyes and said, "Curious. You speak like someone who has practiced this conversation many times." He blushed, grew irritated, and immediately lost his thread. The confession was not in his words, but in his reaction. In a second, I knew I was not speaking with a servant of Florence, but with an actor desperate for acceptance. Improvisation reveals more than 1,000 prepared speeches. Remember this. Anyone who needs you to react in a very specific way to keep their coherence is not authentic. He is an actor. And if you want to know him, you must break his play. Do not fear being the stone in the shoe, the dissonant note, the gaze that does not smile. It is in that moment of disruption that the script collapses and truth emerges. The human soul is like painted glass. While you look at it straight on, you see only colors. But if you throw a stone, even a small one, the paint cracks and the glass appears. And the glass is what was always there, hidden beneath the illusion. I, Machiavelli, did not want to see colors. I wanted to see glass. Breaking the inner script is not cruelty. It is diagnosis. It is the only way to know whether you are speaking to a real man or to a well-rehearsed character. And what I discovered, after years of doing so, is that most cannot bear to improvise. Because to improvise is to live, and few know how to live without masks. You have now seen how actors collapse when they lose their script. Now you will learn an even subtler tactic: to deny something small. Because you do not need a great conflict to test loyalty. A tiny no is enough for the soul to reveal its true nature. Block 5. Deny something small. I have learned that you do not need a great betrayal to know the essence of a man. Sometimes it is enough to deny him something minimal, almost insignificant. A simple request, an expected favor. A small gesture of support that seemed certain. That tiny no, almost invisible, acts like a scalpel. It does not cut flesh. It cuts souls. Men often appear loyal as long as they feel they are gaining something from you. But true loyalty, the kind that does not depend on rewards, only appears when you deny them. I remember an ally who seemed unshakable. Always ready, always smiling. Once he asked me for a minor recommendation, a simple written note to support him in a trivial dispute. I said no, calmly, without hostility. From that day on, his behavior changed. His visits became fewer, his words colder. He never confronted me directly, but the bond was already dead. His loyalty had been rented to my yes. A single no was enough to charge the real price of his friendship. That is when I understood the first rule. The soul of a man is measured by his reaction to the smallest denial. Some, when they hear a no, immediately grow cold, as if your refusal were poison that dissolved everything they claimed to feel for you. These are the most common. Their friendship was nothing more than a chain of yeses. Others react with open fury. They confront you, accuse you of injustice, feel betrayed. For them, your denial is a personal insult. They were not asking, they were demanding. And when they do not receive, they show their true hunger for control. The most dangerous are those who smile and accept your no, but in silence begin to harbor resentment. They do not show it immediately, but weeks later you notice their sabotage. A door closed, a rumor spread, a withdrawn support at a crucial moment. These are the deadliest enemies, for they do not react in the open. They conspire in the shadows. And rarely, a fourth type appears, the one who accepts the no without changing. He does not argue. He does not take offense. He does not create distance. He remains the same. These are rare, valuable. Their bond with you did not depend on what you gave, but on who you were. They are few, but they exist. In the Italian courts, I practiced this tactic constantly. I denied small favors, sometimes absurd ones, only to observe. And always, I gained more information from that no than from 1,000 yeses. The small no is a magnifying glass. It shows what they believed you were obligated to give them, what rights they assumed over you. For a man does not reveal himself so much in what he asks, as in what he expects you will never deny. Let me give you a metaphor. A glass seems strong while you hold it carefully, but if you tap it lightly with your fingertip, you can hear whether it is cracked. The small no is that light tap. It tells you where the hidden fractures are. I have seen entire marriages break not because of great infidelities, but because one partner denied a trivial gesture, a word at the expected moment, a presence on a minor occasion. The other felt betrayed because in their mind that yes was a right. That revealed that their love was not a bond, but an unwritten contract. I, Machiavelli, never trusted blind love or untested friendship. I always tested with noise, because the no is the measure of fidelity. The mistake many make is to believe that no destroys bonds. It does not. The no reveals them. If someone leaves because of a no, he was never with you. He was with your yeses. If someone remains the same after a no, then that bond has roots. The small no is an oracle. It says more than entire speeches. Let me give you an example. A foreign diplomat, skilled with words, constantly asked me for details, small gestures of support in negotiations. I agreed to some, but one day I denied him a minor request, to accompany him to a meeting of no importance. I noticed it instantly. His face changed, his eyes hardened. From then on, his tone toward me lost warmth. That man never sought friendship. He sought only a mirror of his ambition. The no was the light that illuminated his shadow. And here lies the art. You do not need to deny something great. Men can forgive a great refusal because they understand its magnitude. What they cannot bear is a small no, because they feel it as proof that they were not as important as they believed. That is the Machiavellian key. What hurts is not the size of the no, but the size of the broken expectation. When you deny, observe with precision. Do not listen only to words. Watch the micro-gestures. Faster blinking, a change in breathing, a drier tone. The soul speaks through tiny cracks. And remember, you must not deny out of cruelty. Deny with calculation. Deny to see. If a man collapses over a small no, that man would have destroyed you over a great yes. For many are faithful only while they feel they are winning with you. That is not loyalty. That is emotional symbiosis. True loyalty, the kind that does not require a prize, only shows itself when the other feels he has lost something and still remains. Test this in your life. Do not answer a message immediately. Do not give the expected compliment. Do not support a small decision. Observe. If your silence awakens resentment, if your distance provokes contempt, if your autonomy generates criticism, then you already know the truth. That bond was not a bond. It was dependence. I did not seek to surround myself with dependents. I wanted those who could stand even in the absence of my favor, because those, though few, are the only ones who offer authentic loyalty. In court, I learned that the great traitors always gave signs earlier, in those small noises. He who is offended by the smallest, sooner or later will destroy you for the greatest. That is why, whenever someone swore eternal friendship to me, I tested it with a small number, and almost always, eternity lasted as long as their expectation. The next time you want to measure a bond, remember this: no is a truer mirror than yes. Yes feeds illusions, no shatters them, and in the ruins of those illusions, truth appears. I, Machiavelli, never trusted those who said, "You can always count on me." I trusted those who, after a no, still said the same. For fidelity is not promised. Fidelity is tested. Block 6. Observe attention, not words. For years, I listened to perfect speeches, words arranged like columns, phrases adorned like frescoes on the walls of a palace. All seemed convincing. But soon I understood. Words are the most trained part of human beings. They are a disguise, a wall, a mask rehearsed to exhaustion. What cannot be rehearsed for long is attention. While someone speaks to you, do not listen only to what he says. Observe what he looks at. The focus of his eyes, the movement of his body, the direction of his energy. There lies the true map of his mind. I discovered that attention is the most valuable currency a man possesses. Where he invests his focus, he invests his soul. And no one wastes their focus on what does not matter to them. I have seen men swear eternal love with sweet words, but while speaking, their eyes discreetly searched for the entrance of someone more influential. Their mouth said devotion. Their gaze said hierarchy. In that instant, I knew they were not speaking to me. They were speaking to the opportunity of being seen by another. That is the power of attention. It reveals what words try to conceal. Imagine you are speaking with someone. They tell you that you are important, but they check their phone while you speak. What message do you receive? The real one. You are not a priority. Their words may dress your value in gold, but their attention has already sold you for copper. In Florence, I attended meetings where everyone competed to please. I did not listen so much to the speeches. I looked at their eyes. Whom did they look at most often? Whose smile were they seeking to earn? That simple detail told me more than a treaty of promises. Attention is a thread that ties a man to his desire. And that thread never lies. Let me give you an example. A young courtier assured me with enthusiasm that he only wanted to serve the Republic. But as soon as the prince entered the room, his body leaned toward him, his eyes lit up, his voice lost strength when speaking to me. I needed no further proof. That man did not serve the Republic. He served the power that shone closest. Attention is pure instinct. An instinct cannot pretend for long. Observe carefully. He who always seeks the leader's gaze desires validation. He who ignores those he deems insignificant reveals his vision of hierarchy. He who unconsciously imitates your gestures shows his need to be accepted. Mimicry is one of the most primitive signs of dependence. Animals practice it to survive. Men practice it to be admitted into a circle. When someone copies your posture, your tone, even your expressions, it is not by chance. It is because they fear that without that mirror, their value is not enough. I, Machiavelli, trusted more in the movement of eyes and bodies than in 1,000 solemn oaths. Because words can be trained, but attention slips away like water between fingers. Try this experiment. In the middle of a conversation, fall silent and watch what the other person does in those seconds of pause. If their gaze returns to you with renewed focus, you are still at the center of their interest. If they use the moment to look around, to search for another audience, to focus on something irrelevant, then you already know the truth. You were only decoration in their waiting. The moment of freedom is the X-ray of the mind. What someone does when they are not forced to look at you is what they truly want to see. Let me give you a metaphor. Attention is like the compass of a ship. A man may say he sails north, but if the needle points east, sooner or later, that is where he will end. The course of the soul is seen in the needle of the eyes. I saw many lose power because they trusted the words of their allies and not their gaze. They said, "I follow you," but their eyes were fixed on another. A simple change of wind was enough for them to follow him instead. Remember this: discourse may be a labyrinth, but attention is always an arrow. And that arrow points to what a man desires, fears, or needs. When you stand before someone, do not be distracted by the beauty of their rhetoric. Do as a hunter does, following tracks in the earth. The tracks of the soul are the movements of the gaze. Observe. If someone constantly looks at the most influential person in the room, he reveals his hierarchical ambition. If his eyes seek validation in every gesture of yours, he shows emotional dependence. If he consistently ignores a servant or subordinate, he demonstrates natural contempt for the weak. All of this you will know without them saying a single word. The common mistake is listening too much. I never listened only with my ears. I listened with my eyes. And what I saw almost always contradicted what I heard. For a man can lie with his mouth, but not with his eyes. In my years as an observer, I learned that the soul betrays itself more in the trajectory of attention than in the content of discourse. Words seek to convince. Attention seeks nourishment. Try this. When someone speaks to you, let them finish their sentence. Pause. Watch their eyes. Do they fix on you calmly? Or do they scatter, seeking refuge elsewhere? That fleeing gaze is pure confession. I compare attention to an underground river. On the surface, there may be calm, but the deep water always flows toward its true course. You only need to look at where it emerges in small gestures, and most importantly, control your own attention. For he who does not master where he places his gaze, his energy, his time, will always be a slave to invisible forces, fear, desire, insecurity. He who controls his attention controls his power. He who does not is already manipulated by others. Remember this: what a man looks at most is what he desires. What he consistently ignores is what he deems irrelevant. I, Machiavelli, learned to read the eyes before the lips, and so I never needed men to confess their intentions. I had already seen them written in the involuntary movements of their gaze. Block 7. Invent a weakness. Man reveals himself not when he feels observed, but when he believes he has the advantage. I, Machiavelli, learned to feign weaknesses in order to awaken truth in others. Confessing an invented fragility is like throwing a piece of meat to the wolf. The wolf cannot resist tasting it. In my conversations, I sometimes said, "I have the habit of trusting others too easily." It was not true. But the one who heard it lit up. Some stored that phrase to use it against me later. Others laughed, feeling superior. And a few, the most curious, answered with their own confession, revealing a real weakness, believing I had opened the door first. That is the trick. Never offer real ammunition. Only bait. Feigned vulnerability provokes a reaction that unmasks. Some cannot resist using what they think is your weakness. That reveals their hunger for dominance. Others ignore it, feigning respect, but in truth, calculating how they might use it later. And a third group, the most interesting, opens up immediately. These are those who seek genuine connection, not advantage. Inventing a weakness is a distorted mirror. Whoever looks at it projects their true nature. Never hand real weapons to the enemy. Only mirages. For those who play with illusions reveal themselves, while you remain intact. Block 8. Make them wait. Time not only measures, it exposes. Make a man wait, and you will see his true character. The impatient will grow irritated, disguising his anxiety as concern. The insecure will over-justify, fearing your silence is rejection. The manipulator will use guilt. Why do you ignore me? Have I done something wrong? And some, the most false, will turn cold at once, proving they were never with you, only with the gratification you gave. But there exists a different kind. The one who waits without losing calm. The one who answers with the same energy when your word arrives, without reproach, without anxiety. That one is rare. That one deserves your attention. Time is an invisible battlefield. Delay a message, postpone a decision, pause a promise. Observe how they collapse or how they endure. For he who cannot tolerate waiting is a slave to his own impatience. And a slave to impatience is easy to manipulate. I used time as a blade. I did not answer quickly. I did not rush. I let others consume themselves in the void of my silence. And when I spoke, they had already revealed more than they wished. Remember, to make someone wait is not cruelty. It is diagnosis. Block 9. Provoke envy and reveal the enemy. Of all hidden emotions, envy is the most silent and the most lethal. It needs no reason. Your shine alone is enough to awaken it in those who feel themselves in shadow. I learned to provoke it elegantly. I would comment on a small achievement, a rumor of success and earned praise. Not with arrogance, but with apparent humility. And then I would watch. He who smiles with you is on your side. He who averts his gaze, who minimizes with a joke, who suddenly changes the subject, that one is already at war with you. Envy does not announce itself. It leaks in a gesture, a blink, a clenched jaw. And the most dangerous truth, envy always rises nearby, from those who began beside you, but feel you moved ahead. Admiration turns to hatred when it cannot reach you. That is why I did not seek to avoid envy. I knew it was inevitable if one excelled. What I sought was to detect it early, before it became betrayal. A forced smile after your success speaks louder than 1,000 speeches. And when you see it, you already know that person, sooner or later, will try to bring you down. Envy is a poison that accumulates. It does not kill in an instant, but corrodes little by little until the dagger appears. So I provoked envy not out of malice, but out of diagnosis. To know who truly celebrated me, and who sharpened knives in silence. I have shared with you my tactics, not as pious advice, but as confessions of a man who walked among shadows. I learned that men are not read in what they say, but in what they hide. That truth is not extracted with shouts, but with silences. That loyalty is not proven with gifts, but with refusals. That power does not rest in words, but in attention. Men are actors. Some play saints, others heroes, others victims, but all have a script. And if you learn to break it, you will see the man exposed. The human soul is like a ruined palace. From afar it appears majestic, but up close you discover cracks, hollow walls, ceilings about to collapse. Only the one who dares to look beyond the ornament understands the fragility behind the facade. I, Machiavelli, never trusted masks. I trusted involuntary gestures, furtive glances, awkward silences, the moments that reveal more than confessions. Remember this as my legacy. True power is not in commanding armies, but in reading souls. For he who knows how to read the soul of others can anticipate betrayal, manipulate will, and conquer without a sword. The strong prince is not he who rules with fear, but he who understands the fears of others. The wise strategist is not he who accumulates victories, but he who discovers the hidden defeats inside the hearts of men. Listen well. Humanity lives under masks. Only the one who dares to break them becomes the architect of his destiny. I, Machiavelli, did not seek to be loved. I sought to be lucid. And lucidity, though painful, is the only path to true power.
You have heard the man who saw what others did not dare to look at. You have heard the tactics with which Machiavelli dissected souls and stripped power bare. Now it depends on you. You may close your eyes and keep living among masks, or you may learn to read the invisible gestures, the uncomfortable silences, the hidden cracks that reveal the truth. Remember this: the world is not ruled by goodness. It is ruled by strategy. And he who does not learn to read the soul will end up being read by others. This has been the voice of shadows. Here ends Machiavelli's confession. Here begins your own reading of the world.